Today I'm going to read a book about Mr. Puttet and Tabby picked the pears. Mr. Puttet and Tabby picked the pears. Mr. Puttet and Tabby picked the pears. Chapter 1, Pear Jelly. Chapter 2, Cranky Legs. Chapter 3, Sing. Chapter 4, Juicy Days. Chapter 1, Pear Jelly. It was fall and juicy things were growing in Mr. Puttet's backyard. Juicy apples, juicy tomatoes, juicy pears. Mr. Puttet walked with his fine cat Tabby among the juicy things, and he dreamed of apple pie and apple turnovers. He dreamed of hot apple cider with a cinnamon stick and stuffed red tomatoes. But most of all, he dreamed of pear jelly. Mr. Puttet loved pear jelly. He had loved it since he was a boy. Fall was his favorite season because of pear jelly. And now it was time, Tabby, said Mr. Puttet. It is time to pick the pears. Tabby loved it when Mr. Puttet said it was time to do something. She was old, but she still liked excitement. She followed Mr. Puttet into the garage where he found a ladder for pear picking. Then they went to the backyard where all the excitement was. Chapter 2, Cranky Legs. Mr. Puttet had a problem. It was a ladder problem. Mr. Puttet set his ladder against the pear tree, but he couldn't get up the ladder. Last year he got up the ladder, but this year he had cranky legs. Cranky legs, cranky knees, cranky feet. He stepped onto the ladder, and his legs were so cranky, he had to get right off again. One trouble being old, said Mr. Puttet, is being cranky. Tabby knew what he meant. She had a cranky tail. Some days it was so cranky it wouldn't swish. It just stuck in the air like a stick. Cranky legs and cranky tails are no fun when you are old, especially if you want pear jelly. Mr. Puttet looked at the pears still in his tree, and he thought, Tabby curled herself up and waited. She liked excitement, but she could wait for it. Oops. Chapter 3. Zing! What I need, said Mr. Putter at last, is a good slingshot. Mr. Putter knew about slingshots. He had played with them as a boy. They were good for knocking cans off logs. So they must be good for knocking pears off trees. Tabby followed him into the house to make a slingshot. Mr. Putter found a pair of old underwear that he didn't like. He didn't like it because it was covered with puddles. His brother had given him the underwear for his birthday. His brother loved the underwear. He thought it was funny. Mr. Putter did not. So he cut up the underwear and he got some very good elastic. Then he got an old glove. Then he got a stick. And he made his slingshot. Mr. Putter and Tabby went back to the pear tree. Mr. Putter needed something hard and round to sling. Many of his apples had already fallen, so he picked up an apple. He put the apple in the slingshot. He aimed at a pear tree. He pulled back as hard as he could. Zing! The hard, round apple went flying up, up, up over Mr. Putter's pear tree, over Mr. Putter's apple tree, over Mr. Putter's chimney, over Mr. Putter's house. Mr. Putter and Tabby watched as it flew out of sight. Said Mr. Putter. He picked up another apple. Zing! Up, 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 over, out of sight. Wow, said Mr. Putter. He was smiling. You might have Frankie legs, but he sure has Jiffy hands. He picked up another apple. Zing! Another apple. Zing! Another. Zing! He forgot all about the pears. Tabby liked the first zings, but by the seventh zing, she began to yawn. By the tenth zing, she began to nod. And by the 14th zing, she was sound asleep. Mr. Putter played with his slingshot all afternoon. He played through supper time. He played until dark. When he couldn't see the apples and got up anymore. When he was finished, he had no apples and no pear jelly. He was a little embarrassed. He picked Tabby and sneaked inside.